He is MLB Chief Baseball Officer, four-time World Series champ, nine-time All-Star, won a batting championship, and had his number retired by the Yankees. He's Joe Torre back on the show. Good morning, Joe. How are you?
It's been a while, Dan. I thought you forgot all about me.
No, we can't forget about you. And I'm sure this weekend there were a lot of memories that came to mind. And, maybe sometimes they refreshed in your memory with Mariano and Mike Mussina. We just had Mariano on, and he's really in a down mood, Joe. Mo he's still a little bit upset that you didn't allow him to play at least one at-bat in center field defensively for one batter. Did you ever consider that?
No. I just missed it right away, Dan. I can just see him because he's so competitive. That batter would hit the ball to left center or right center field, and there he is jumping against the wall and making a great catch and laying there and having a stretcher take him off the field. So no thanks. I was satisfied with the 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 innings he pitched to help us win a ball game.
When did you know you had something?
Well, I think it was in '96. Again, in spring training, obviously, I didn't know what we had. I knew we had a pitcher that had no options left, and that we had to keep him on the roster. And we had Bob Wickman and John Wetland as other closers, so he didn't. He was more of a starter in the minor leagues. But we discovered it early on. We brought him into a game in the 6th inning. He pitched the 7th inning. He pitched the 7th and the 8th, and Wetland would tie it up in the 9th, and it certainly made for easy managing because you only had to manage 6 innings, and that combination, made it happen. And when it came time for the end of our season, we won the World Series, and John Wetland was the MVP. Knowing what Mariano had done, it really wasn't a tough call to try him as the closer.
Go back to what you were saying about Mariano. He was out of options, so this was sort of the last chance. You had to keep him on the roster. Was there a chance that you were going to trade him?
Well, there was rumor. It didn't go very far. It makes for a good story, and a lot of it was really circling around Jeter, who didn't have a particularly good spring. And there was talk at the end of spring training. When I mean the end, it was probably the last week or so, that we'd send Jeter down to the minor leagues and maybe use Mariano to get a shortstop. But it was just, maybe one conversation. It didn't go very far. And, thank goodness for all of us that it didn't go very far, but it was pretty much that we were going to have to make room for him because of his arm, and he showed me anyway when I was watching that game against Seattle that it looked like he had pretty good poise on the mound in a very tight situation out there, and obviously he didn't disappoint anybody.
How many times did you take Rivera out of a game when he was closing?
Just one where he got beat up a little bit, and I was disappointed. That was the only time I was disappointed with our fans because they booed him coming off the field. He gave up some runs against Boston and couldn't close it. This was in the middle of the year. It wasn't postseason or anything. But that was about it. I certainly once he came into the game, Dan, I put my hands in my pockets. I really had nothing else to do other than be a spectator. And the only one, of course, we were close to was in 2003 when we felt, enough was enough. We don't want to hurt this guy. And, he wasn't going to listen to it. He was going to go out there until the game was decided.
Talking to Joe Torre, the former Major League manager, now working for Major League Baseball, their chief baseball officer. There was a story that Mike Mussina looked at you and said, "Don't even think about coming out to the mountain." Is that true?
Yeah. I got it. And he's a man of few words. And when a pitcher does that to me, I'll turn around. I'll make an about face. And again, it's not like a young kid. This is an experienced guy. I always listen to the veterans because they know how they felt and they know what needed to be done. So it didn't happen very often, obviously. I think Andy Pettit was probably mad at me for a short period of time in every game I took him out of. But aside from that, that was very unusual for Mike, and I had no problem making an about face and changing my mind.
Jeter is, I believe, eligible next year. Why would you think that he wouldn't get 100%?
I can't fathom that would ever happen. I think, Mariano being the first this year, I expect Derek to be on everybody's ballot next year. I mean, I wouldn't think of a reason why he wouldn't be, because he was so respected around baseball, and he was such a special player. More than just ability, Dan. His character and the way he conducted himself, and the fact that he played so well under pressure. Again, that's high expectations to say I bet you'll get 100%, but I don't expect it to be anything different than Mariano got.
I didn't realize you never played in the postseason as a player.
Never did. Came close a couple of times with St. Louis, and with the Cubs. I guess we were contending once with the Mets, and that was in '73 when they wind up going to the World Series, and I think it was 2 years in a row we had to, or I know the one year we had to wait for the Mets to play a doubleheader against the Cubs at the end of the year after the season was over to determine if we had another opportunity to get there in the postseason. But they won the first game of the doubleheader, and the second game was called off because it wasn't necessary, and we lost out. But 2 years in a row we got to the last few days, and we come up short.
I saw where the commissioner had some comments about the safety netting, and not every stadium obviously is built the same. When do you think fans should expect safety netting at all ballparks?
Well, you know what? It's really up to each individual club. We can only suggest that, for the safety of the fans. And there have been a number of fans that have been resistant to it because they feel it's going to, steal a foul ball from getting to them where they can get a souvenir. But the safety factor. I know in Japan they have it all the way down to the foul lines and all down to the foul poles. I mean, especially nowadays with the social media and everybody looking down at their phones and stuff. It just concerns me. And we were this young girl who got hit this year. It's so scary. It really is, because even without the net, I mean, even if you're sitting far out, you hit any of those balls hard, it's really tough to get out of the way.
The Robo umpires in the Atlantic League certainly getting some attention. How closely is Major League Baseball monitoring these robotic umpires?
Well, we test a lot of stuff. And, again, we just did it starting at the All-Star break, and we'll see what the electronic strike zone looks like. I'm, being the old guy I am, I sort of like the game to stay human. And I'm not, since we put replay in, Dan, I think everybody expects to get everything perfect. Yeah. And I don't think our game is that way. I think our game is, to me, it's an imperfect game. It always felt perfect to me because it was my lifeblood from a kid growing up, even to the present time. And I'd hate to see us, try to be too perfect, because there's not a player out there that's perfect, not a pitcher out there that's perfect. And, I don't think the game is that way. But again, when technology gets to the point where it did with replay, where we felt that unless we did replay, we'd have too much attention paid to the call that was missed, and the game could have been turned on that call, and it takes the attention away from the field. So I don't see the robotic strike zone happening, but again, I wasn't really into changing the slide rule either. But once you get letters from parents who have kids in the minor leagues that were carried off the field, you have to give it a second thought.
I have a guy who works with me. His name is McLovin, and he's a baseball guy. He's an analytics guy, and he says that basically the baseball manager is the most overrated position in all of sports, and anybody could be a baseball manager in the major leagues. McLovin, is there anything else you'd like to add?
I did not say that. I just said the trend
you said that yesterday. Now that I got Joe Torre, then you don't want to step up to the plate?
I feel like I'm at home now. You guys are still arguing over there. I love it.
Okay. Do you want to say anything else?
There's that Moneyball trend that the manager has been de-emphasized for the analytics front office guys. That's happening, it seems.
Do you want to respond?
It is happening, and I'm not a fan of it. I mean, information is important, but once we minimize the effect of a manager and being able to look into a guy's eyes and using the instincts that he gained in his years of baseball, I think is a big mistake. I think we can't make this a video game, and as I say, that's anti-human again. When we do the numbers, we had a 3-0 lead against the Red Sox, and I guess we could have called in the dogs at that point because it wasn't supposed to happen. It never happened before, but it did happen, and it's just something about human beings playing the game that make you scratch your head sometimes, and other times just surprise the heck out of you in a good way. So. I think we've gone a little bit too far right now, and the governor is right because I think they've relied too much on numbers, especially with the whole pitching stuff of what's going on now. But we'll have to wait and see. I think the game of baseball has been too good for too long to not survive this.
Wait, you just said McLovin was right. Oh, my gosh, he's going to be insufferable, Joe.
I told you he was brilliant,
well,
Dan.
That's the only way I'm going to get on this show again. I have to make sure I have friends in high places, that's all.
Yeah, you got McLovin on your side. Before I let you go, you're doing something great. Safe at Home Golf Tournament, and that'll be held tomorrow, Sleepy Hollow Country Club in Westchester County. But tell people about Safe at Home and, how long you've been involved in this, Joe.
Well, it's interesting, Dan. I grew up, my dad abused my mom. I was a very shy kid, nervous kid. It wasn't until I got myself a little counseling, sort of by mistake. I went to a seminar with my wife, Allie. She was pregnant with our daughter, and I found out that a lot of the fears I had and stuff were caused by what Dad was bringing to the house and bringing home. He made everybody nervous. I'm the youngest of 5. So I really felt free to talk about what I went through as a child. And it was my wife, Allie, and my daughter, Christina, who wanted to do it through education. So we put safe rooms in schools with master's level counselors, and we give these kids who deal with abuse at home or around there, date rape, stuff like that. I mean, we give middle school and high school kids the ability to talk about it. We let them know it's not their fault. They're not alone. They're not the only ones. When I was growing up in that home, I wouldn't share it with any of my friends because I didn't think anybody else would understand it because I thought we were the only ones. But it's out there and it's real. And we've had close to 100,000 kids come through our program since we started in 2002, and actually 2005 we started our first Margaret's Place. It's the safe room we named after my mom. So,
wow.
Tomorrow we're going out there, and we have a lot of celebrities that come out. We have Morris Satowski. We got a couple of pros: Morris Satowski, Len Matisse, Jim Leyritz, Jimmy Leland, Dan Plesac. We even have Rudy Rudiger coming out there, and
Nice.
former newscaster Harry Smith, and from Hamilton, Chris Jackson. It's going to be a fun day. Right now, the weather looks good. We keep our fingers crossed, and hopefully, we can raise some money for our foundation. Anybody who needs more information, just go to joetorre.org, and it'll give you a little background on what we do.
It's great to catch up with you, Joe. I hope the family's good, and have fun tomorrow.
Thanks, Dan. We will.
That's Joe Torre, the annual Safe at Home golf tournament held tomorrow. joetorre.org for more information on this. And, the last couple of times Joe's been on, he's talked about this and, to get to the point where you can talk about this. And that's what he said. He needed therapy to get to that point. But then to take it a step further to do what he's doing Safe at Home and these safe rooms, and 100,000 kids have gone through this. So well done. Well done by Joe.
For more Dan Patrick Show, tune into Audience Channel 239 on DirecTV. Stream for free on BR Live or download the Dan Patrick Show app.